Thank you, Minister, for your update. I do welcome the moves with regard to commercial rates. It's crucially important. We may have to do more in that, but it does give a degree of certainty, and they're not insignificant sums either. I just want a couple of things. Firstly, in relation to mortgages, and you mentioned what the Department have done with regard to the Rebuilding Ireland home loan. It is right, and I welcome that fact that we're not charging interest for the mortgage holiday period of 3 months. It's likely that we may have to extend that to 6 months. But what I would say through yourself and other colleagues at Cabinet, particularly with finance, there still remains a large issue with regard to our own banks and the mortgage holiday or mortgage break that's there already. One, in relation to the charging of interest that is quite substantial in that period, but certainly with the non-bank lenders, they still have not been dealt with as they should. We have Pepper and others who won't give any of their, they will only give notification of acceptance of a mortgage break over the phone. Nothing is given in writing. So there are some of the lenders out there that are not actually playing ball. I want to agree with you, and I want to turn specifically to the area of homelessness. And some of the work, the interagency work that has been done between the Department of Housing, the HSE, Section 39 organisations and people who have been reassigned from drugs task forces and other task forces across the country. I know it myself in Fingal. There's been incredible work there. And if we look at it when the crisis started, first, that the homeless cohort and community were one of the most at-risk people were there with regard to the spread or the potential spread of COVID. That has actually been a success, but it's been a success down to the unbelievable work that has been done in some of the cocooning facilities that are in place now, the work of the DHRE, Dublin City Council and other local authorities. What I'd say to you is this, though: we should never return to dormitory-style homeless emergency accommodation. It's something that was debated in the general election. That's a long time from now. But the wraparound services that our homeless community are receiving now, because HSE, Section 39s and the department are working together, means the type of recovery, particularly for people with chaotic lifestyles and with addiction, has been incredible. In one of our worst crises that we've ever seen, and certainly I have witnessed, there have been some, ironically, health benefits for a lot of these people because the way in which that they're being looked after. So we need to take that from this crisis. So can I ask you, is there any planning further from that to actually bed in these type of arrangements now into the future? Obviously, the housing the 9,700 odd people who are homeless in permanent accommodation is what we want, but in the short term, the emergency accommodation. Could I ask you too, Minister, the plans? You mentioned 2,700 homes secured through HAP. Have there many homes purchased by local authorities in that period for homeless families? I think that is another discussion that we will get to. On the own room accommodation for the homeless, what additional funding has been given since the start of the crisis towards that, towards homeless services? Can I ask, Minister, has there been plans within the department as well? When we look at the recovery that will come down the track, you've mentioned 5,000 homes completed in the first quarter. Some of the projections I've seen, and from talking to stakeholders, could be looking at as few as 18,000 homes by the end of this year, depending. So we still will have a major supply issue across all the different, both public and private housing. Has there been any contact with regard to at EU level to revise and indeed change fiscal rules to ensure that each state has the capacity to invest directly in housing as part of a stimulus package? I think the EU really needs to look at this, because the state, through this recovery, particularly on housing, where we had already this sector was under pressure, is now being exacerbated by the COVID-19 crisis. But how we respond to it... Yes, sorry, I will actually. I forgot that. OK, I'll conclude there. Thanks.
Minister, you have a minute and a half.
Okay. Thank you, Ceann Comhairle. Deputy, just very quickly. The work of the interagency group that I set up in September 2017 was meant to be the vehicle to tie all of the different departments together, but bureaucratic walls maintained, unfortunately. Regardless of that, they came down very quickly in the crisis, and that's why the work has been so successful. It's a model that must continue into the future. I know that you're planning on visiting the Dublin Regional Homeless Executive, and I welcome that, and I think you'll go down and you'll have a very good engagement. The dormitory-style accommodation and not returning to it, the big message coming back from the NGOs is that the outcomes for people in these new types of accommodation are so much better. It's more stable, they're coming into programmes, they're happier, they're healthier. It's the way forward. So a piece of work is being done around that at the moment, and in relation to cost. We still have additional accommodation if we need it, in case there's a surge or a second wave in society more generally, or in case we find a cluster in one of our units of accommodation or areas of accommodation, so we can then re-accommodate people. That will be possible. In relation to the funding, I'm informed, is 20 million so far in the crisis. Additional money was made available to do all of the things that we have had to do. In relation to money to be borrowed, so an agreement was reached between the Housing Finance Agency and the European Investment Bank for an additional €200 million, I think in December. There was meant to be a signing agreement, but it clashed with the general elections, so that didn't happen. But that money is secured and in place. So there's plenty of funding available from Europe and other sources to put into housing. One of the challenges we will face, though, as we open up new sites, is social distancing on site and how that might affect the capacity that can actually be delivered
Thank you, Minister.
in the next
We're going
6
to take
months.
questions
Thank you.
from Deputy Brown and Deputy Collins.